Specimen Endgame.
I spent almost 40 years as an evangelical Christian. I studied theology at Bible college. I studied religious philosophy at university. I believed I heard God speaking to me. I believed God had anointed me with the Holy Spirit. I believed I had the gift of prophecy. I preached the gospel at every opportunity. My entire life and identity was based around Christianity. It was only when I was confronted with a series of unrelenting errors did my faith crumble. Logical inconsistencies in the Bible, unverifiable interpretations, interfaith apologetics, and divine hiddenness all convinced me that God did not exist. I had to overcome my own biases, my own assumptions, my own cognitive dissonance. I never intentionally sought to disprove God. It was Jesus' own words that started me on this journey. The moment I realized that God did not exist was a powerful one. I was not sad. I did not feel a sense of loss. Instead, I felt relieved. It felt as though a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Over the last 15 years, I wrestled with the uncomfortable contradictions of my faith, and now everything made sense. I had my answer. Unfortunately, I did not realize the extent of my religious conditioning. It took me months to stop praying instinctively. I was still afraid of hell and the rapture, even though those concepts no longer made sense. I still believed that we had a soul and that evolution was just a theory. I still thought there was a worldwide flood at one time and that the earth was at most 10,000 years old. I believed no one else had ever left the one true religion of evangelical Christianity unless they were simply angry at God. A few months after the deconstruction of my faith, I stumbled onto some videos talking about the flat earth movement. Flat earthers are individuals that are convinced the world is flat and no amount of evidence can persuade them otherwise. Video and photo evidence of the globe earth is discounted as fake. Science is considered to be corrupt and evil, paid off by the government. The shape of the earth became part of their identity. Anyone who rejected their ideals and their beliefs were considered hostile to the flat earth tribe. Flat earthers rejected evidence that contradicted their beliefs and selected evidence that confirmed their beliefs. And that was analogous to my own mindset when I was a Christian. Convincing a flat earther that the world was a globe was just as difficult as convincing a Christian there was no God. How then could you convince someone their beliefs were wrong? How could you tell if your beliefs were wrong? As I tried to find the answer to those questions, I began to learn about how we think we know what we know. I learned a lot about confirmation bias, about the Dunning-Kruger effect, about how a belief tied to an identity could not be overturned through facts and evidence. I realized how my brain compartmentalized my belief, so no matter what piece of evidence I had been shown, it would never come into contact with my belief in God. The only way I was able to free myself was to evaluate Christianity objectively and fairly using the same criteria I used for every other religion. I began to listen and attempt to understand those outside my own echo chamber. I couldn't hold any belief as sacred and unquestionable. When watching videos of people trying to convince flat earthers that the world was indeed a globe, I stumbled upon videos by Dave Freina from the YouTube channel Professor Dave Explains. Dave is a science educator and provides free, easy-to-understand videos covering the fundamentals of science. He introduced me to many scientific concepts and principles that were absent in my education. Without using complicated scientific principles, Dave clearly explained many ways that we can repeatedly test and independently verify the shape of the Earth. I often wonder how many flat earthers have been convinced of the globe Earth from watching those videos. After watching many Professor Dave Explains videos, YouTube recommended to me a video by someone named Drew on a channel called Genetically Modified Skeptic. I had no idea what he meant by that name, so I watched a number of his videos on the cult-like behavior of multi-level marketing schemes, only to discover that he was, and get this, an atheist. It took me a while to process that discovery. I expected an atheist to be a long-haired rock and roll biker, a negative stigma perpetuated by my religious upbringing. But here was a pleasant and kind individual talking from an atheist perspective. I was intrigued and watched more, only to discover a video of how he became an atheist after being a Baptist Christian, a sister denomination to my own Pentecostal Christianity. I was shocked and excited. Drew outlined the reasons he became an atheist, highlighting the development of his critical thinking skills, skepticism, and scientific literacy that gave him the tools he needed to question his faith. This was the first time I ever heard of someone leaving the evangelical collective for reasons other than defying God or being angry with him. I rushed down to his comment section, already planning to let him know there were now 2 of us. What I saw stunned me. There was comment after comment from other individuals who also left their religions, each one having their own justifiable reason for doing so. Naive as I was, I thought, wait, there are more? I honestly did not ever once consider that other evangelicals would have come to the same conclusion as me. The Genetically Modified Skeptic channel opened an entire new world of videos to me. Holy Kool-Aid, Rationality Rules, Theremin Trees, and many more. I watched a seemingly endless number of videos, all from people that once believed in the Christian God and came to the same realization I did. The realization that God did not exist. What surprised me even more was that they did not arrive at their conclusion the same way I did. The more I watched, the more I realized how ignorant and arrogant I had been as a Christian. Here were these individuals that, at a very young age, were able to figure out that God did not exist, something that took me nearly 40 years. I felt like I had been such a gullible person for believing what I did. I felt guilty for judging people when I was a Christian because they did not align with the morality outlined in the Bible. I felt like I had missed out on my entire education. I knew virtually nothing of the natural sciences. Since I was young, I avoided any science class that even came close to teaching evolution or anything that might contradict creationism. Even at this point in my deconversion, I still thought evolution was just a theory. I had to watch several more videos by Professor Dave in order to learn about what was meant by a scientific theory. I've always used the term theory as a kind of guess. However, a scientific theory is an explanation of the natural world that can be repeatedly tested, verified, and evaluated. They are shown to be consistent beyond reasonable doubt and can be used to make accurate predictions. And then something happened that changed my life once more. You see, after my deconstruction, I initially thought nothing would have to change. I would still tell people I was a Christian when asked. If people asked me to pray at a meal or a service, I would still pray. It didn't matter to me if I was praying to no one in particular, but that would soon change when I learned about the content from Aaron Ra. When I first received a video recommendation from Aaron Ra's channel, I promptly ignored it. Aaron was the personification of atheism in my Christian conditioned mind, a long-haired rock and roll biker. However, YouTube kept recommending his videos to me. For many days, I kept ignoring those recommendations, and yet they would keep appearing on my list of recommended videos. Were I a Christian at this point, I would have thought God was prompting me to watch Aaron's videos. As I went to block his channel for many future recommendations, I paused and thought, why am I ignoring this fellow? I began to realize I still had negative biases and negative stigmas for my Christian programming. I was still seeing things through the Christian lens that had kept me blind for so long. I challenged myself to watch his video with an open mind. I was not prepared for it. What I saw was a kind-hearted person, providing valuable instruction free of charge to those with religious conditioning such as myself. For 3 weeks, I binged as many of his videos as I could. Aaron proved without any doubt that a worldwide flood did not and could not have happened. Aaron provided more research into the history of the Bible than any class I had at Bible college. I began to learn about evolution and the mythos of the Christian religion. Aaron explained what it was to be an atheist, what it meant, and the responsibility that title had. I learned from him the hazards of religious programming. It was him that prompted me to start this channel and post my testimony. I realized I still had a lot to learn about evidence, science, and beliefs. It was then that I decided not to pretend to be a Christian anymore. I began to watch more from the atheist community. Channels like Holy Kool-Aid, run by a former evangelical missionary, helped me overcome my irrational fears of hell, the devil, and the rapture. That channel debunks a lot of superstitious beliefs, such as prophecy, visions, and speaking in tongues. Channels such as Apologia help me critically examine Christian claims and thoroughly investigate biblically based research. In the description below, I've included links to some of the videos I first watched coming out of my faith. All of those videos are worth watching, whether you are a Christian or new to atheism. I've included some of the books that I've found helpful as well. Seth Andrews was a former Fox News radio host and wrote a book called Deconverted. Casey Fox has a very touching book called Black Sheep. If you were like me and basically science illiterate, she covers a lot of the basic science behind chemistry, neurology, and evolution. Dave Warnock, an individual living with ALS, has a very touching book about how he left his faith called Childish Things. I'm now an atheist. I define a theist as someone who makes the positive claim that a god or gods exist. I define an atheist as someone who rejects that claim due to the lack of evidence. I began to realize how important it is to be able to question everything that I claim to know. I began to realize how important it is to be able to change my mind when presented with compelling evidence that could be independently verified. I realized if I was unwilling to change my opinion when presented with compelling evidence, then what I held was not knowledge or fact, it was a belief. I finally gave myself permission to question my beliefs, and that is liberating. There is so much that I want to learn. It felt like I had been living my entire life in a confined room, only to be let out and allowed to see the entire world. If you watched all of the videos in this series, then I sincerely thank you. I'm glad to share my personal journey with you, even if you did not come to the same conclusion I did. I wanted to share my journey. I wanted to have something to show my friends and family why I had a drastic change in my beliefs. If you are a Christian, I doubt my arguments have persuaded you, but I sincerely hope these videos, at the very least, gave you permission to question your own beliefs.